Hi there, welcome once again to the Dukascopy TV studio. I'm Ben Jones, and alongside me is Marc Henzelin to discuss the changing face between Swiss banks and their clients. Marc, thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you, Ben, for inviting me.
Not a problem. So could you begin by talking very generally about the changing relationship between Swiss banks and their clients? Would you say that the need for secrecy laws is changing?
I think there is a big change of pattern in the relations between Swiss banks and their clients, because before, all the relations were dominated by the banking secrecy, in the sense that many clients had their assets here for tax reasons or for family reasons. All in all, they wanted discretion. So when there was a problem with the bank, such as bad management, bad policy of management, or maybe sometimes even asset managers who, let's say, stole the money or used the money in a way which could be criminal even, the clients didn't want to make a big case about that, because they didn't want to have their bank account being disclosed to tax authorities or any other persons. So the tendency was to go to the bank. I mean, the lawyers used to do that. They went to the bank, discussed with the bank, and usually a nice settlement was agreed upon between the client, the lawyers, and the bankers. Now this time is over, or a bit over. Why? Because the clients, they know that the bank accounts even are disclosed or will be disclosed in the future, so they don't have this incentive actually to settle discreetly with the bank. So they become a bit more aggressive with the bankers. On the other hand, the bankers are probably less fat than in the past. So they are not ready to agree as quickly as in the past. So all that ends up in courts now, or at least it's becoming much more aggressive, I would say. There are still some banks which are still willing to settle nicely, especially the banks which have a very long-term policy towards clients. But for most banks, actually, it has becoming business as usual. And as soon as there is a dispute, each party takes a lawyer and goes to court.
Okay, now it seems when it comes to litigation, Swiss banks are becoming more at risk from their clients. Can you discuss why this is, and particularly how this differs from a few years ago?
Because the regulations have become much more complicated first than in the past. Before it was depended only on the contracts, or even sometimes there was no contract between a client and the banker. It was just a matter of confidence between the person and the banker. Now all that has become highly regulated, and as soon as you regulate a certain practice, of course you find loopholes in a way, and it becomes extremely heavy for the bankers as well. A lot of administration to carry on, a lot of papers to fill, a lot of signatures to ask, and as soon as you forget to ask for a signature, then it becomes also a problem. So all that has become much, much more complicated than in the past, I would say.
So the long arm of the US Justice Department is seemingly continuing to extend. Would you say that America oversteps its jurisdiction when involving itself in international affairs?
I would say yes and no. No, because in most cases, the US have jurisdiction. If, for instance, a Swiss bank has a branch in the US, or makes some trading in the US, definitely the US have jurisdiction for the branch, and not only the branch, but for the whole bank, actually. And this is perfectly normal. You see, for instance, the Swiss have shouted a lot because they said the US had no jurisdiction for activities of UBS and Credit Suisse, or for what they did in the US. I've always said that the US had jurisdiction. Actually, you had the Swiss bankers going on the US territory to discuss with clients, and even to encourage possibly clients to avoid taxes against the US laws. So in these kind of cases, the US have jurisdiction, definitely. In some other cases, it's more controversial, it's more arguable. For instance, the US consider that as soon as a bank does business with US dollars, then the US have jurisdiction. This is a bit arguable, and definitely now you see, for instance, in the oil and gas industry, that people are trying now to avoid using US dollars and try to use only euros, for instance, for that reason. In money laundering also the US have a very long arm, so you can discuss. But in the end, I would say why the US are using such a massive power to try to drag foreign banks in their jurisdiction, because they have laws which are extremely tough, where in other countries it's still a bit soft, I would say. Look at Switzerland, for instance. The maximum fine in Switzerland for a criminal activity is $1 million. Depending on certain crimes, for instance, money laundering, serious breaches, are maximum $5 million US dollars. It's absolutely ridiculous for a bank, you know, where in the US they fine banks in terms of billions now. So of course, as long as countries, small countries, which are a little bit in the old ages, still in the old ages, you know, think that the bankers are always acting in a gentle way, you know, in a kind of a gentleman's way, as it was in the past, probably. These countries, they don't have the means now in terms of legal people, manpower, staff, competence, and so on, to make sure that the bankers and the banks are abiding by law. So the US think that they have to police the rest of the world. I don't want to make any comment on that, but this is what they think, actually.
Fantastic. Marc, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. Do make sure you keep clicking back to Dukescopy TV for plenty more updates and exclusive interviews. Bye for now.